Chapter 6 Working and Willow Trees. David Nico's computer whirred, the music coming through his headphones as he bobbed his head up and down like he always did. This was the final step before sending the Reckoning Chronicles to the public. He had to carefully read over every scene and then create a musical accompaniment that matched it. He had crafted thunderstorms for battles, ripple effects for flashbacks, tense violin crescendos for jump scares, and so much more. After some additions of Lewis's writing and Sarah's editing, his ambiance would set their creation apart from the rest. David breathed deeply and tweaked the music for the last scene of the first season.
Kind of a bold move releasing all the episodes at once, but I kind of like it.
The friends had finally decided, well, Lewis had finally decided, the others were already on board, that the first art was ready to be published, and David had offered the idea of self-publishing, with his modest social media following as the main target for the first go-round.
One final rock crumble, 3 guitar twangs, and done.
David hit the save button, sent out one more social media post, and started the countdown.
I really hope this takes off like we wanted. Lewis really deserves this to be recognized. We all do, I guess, but it's always been his dream to inspire like that, even if he doesn't know it. And I really think this story could do it.
The young man's head hit the pillow softly, with his head turned away from the laptop, before he sat back up with a jolt.
I guess one more leg up might be worth looking into.
We interrupt Voltage the audio drama to bring you our sponsor, Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you too, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Overcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership because Anchor is the first sponsor they sign you up with. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. You can download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now back to Voltage.
Lewis's alarm vibrated softly, waking him but no one else, as he had intended. Can't believe I'm about to do this. Time for some real-world inspiration. He approached his closet and opened the door, pushing through the initial clutter to find what he was looking for. Well, if I don't do it now, I'll lose my nerve. Slowly, Lewis began to put on the new clothes. A dark, hooded sweatshirt with darker pants to match, black combat boots, and padded gloves. Making sure no one else could hear his footsteps, he headed out the door and into his car, driving towards downtown. He parked a few blocks away from the general area, near a building that had closed for the night. He sized it up carefully, looking up and down, and then to his left and right. With a powerful leap, the young man propelled himself a good 13 feet into the air, catching the ledge of a windowsill. Well, I guess that beats the record. Olympic strength, literally, huh? His strength was more than enough to pull himself to the roof of the complex, and he stood tall, watching for his chance. Something always happens here at night, but I still can't be everywhere. I still can't see everything. I wonder if the P project gave me complete control over my senses. It is supposed to make my brain work better, right? If I could filter out everything but my hearing, I should be able to find a disturbance rather quickly. Closing his eyes, Lewis focused intently, noticing his ears began to catch more events throughout the city, though still in a modest radius. After around 5 minutes, he heard what he was waiting for. Threats really aren't necessary. Please just take the money and go. Don't hurt anyone.
We'll go when we say we go, old man. Put the friggin' money in the bag before I blow your brains out.
And it was close. Relaxing his senses, Lewis ran towards the edge of the building and leapt, successfully jumping to the next one, hitting the roof running. Right next to it was a gas station. 3 men in dark clothing ran from the station and started towards a park, black bag and guns in hand. Lewis dropped down the fire escape and chased after them, catching up easily. Hey! The men turned around and stopped, but only to fire at the aspiring vigilante. Instinctively, Lewis dodged the shots before ducking behind a willow tree. Well, looks like I'm faster than a bullet. Not a lot faster, though. Not fast enough to keep dodging 3 different sets of gunfire, at least. The This is so ridiculous. What am I doing here? This is a terrible idea. I could go back. The gunfire deafened his focus, and Lewis's breath became haggard. No. I can't lose focus. I'm in this now, and these guys cannot get away with what they did. Not if they leave me at this point. If I just gave up, I could try to outrun them, but there's still the gunfire issue. I may as well stand my ground. What if I slow down everything around me? If my brain processes information faster and I can filter my senses, why shouldn't I be able to push myself into bullet time? Bullet time. That's cool. The bark flew off the tree as the bullets pelted Lewis's cover, and he closed his eyes once again, tightened his stomach, and did his best to shut out everything else around him. He turned sharply from the tree and noticed everything, even the bullets, moving in a slower motion. Time wasn't stopped, but it definitely looked pretty close. Faster than the eye could see, Lewis grabbed all 3 guns and broke the hammers off before tossing them away. Oh, okay. That is a major rush. Oh. Maybe I should put myself back in real time if I want a real fight. So, Lewis smirked slightly, readjusting his perception. You guys give up now, or you want to do it later? Stupid kid, the biggest one muttered, throwing his fist towards Lewis. Barely thinking, the young man caught the blow and turned his body sharply inward, hitting the man in the chest with his elbow. Memories began to flood Lewis's brain. All the sparring he had done with his dad and David, the martial arts movies he had seen, and the anatomy classes he had taken in school, all forming his own idea of what kind of fighting he was best suited for. The perp had staggered back, surprised at first, but then angry. All 3 charged him this time, hoping to drive Lewis backwards, but he stood his ground, blocking each strike they attempted. Lewis stayed and blocked for a few seconds before actually deciding to counter, trying to get a feel for the fight. Catching another fist, he redirected the arm until it snapped. Kicked the man's knee out, 1 down. Striking another thug's ears, Lewis followed by placing his knuckles into the sternum. The criminal leaned forward in pain, providing the opportunity for Lewis to raise his knee up and catch the opponent's skull. That's 2. I think I get it now. It's like it's all about how the body works, how it's structured, how it reacts. Seems simple enough. In one more move, Lewis planted both fists into the final foe's chest and stomach, knocking him into the tree trunk. With all 3 down, Lewis strolled to the bag of money and picked it up. Starting towards the gas station, the young man heard one of the criminals speak. You broke my friggin' arm, man. You shot at me. I think you got a little less than what you were trying to dish out. I didn't enjoy the sound it made, but it was necessary. Yeah, and just who do you think you are? Didn't think a criminal would actually ask that question in real life. Someone who wasn't selfish enough to do what you did, but besides that, I'm nothing. I'm nobody. And with that, Lewis turned back towards the gas station and walked inside. The shopkeeper put his hands up again, but Lewis shook his head and held up the bag of money. It's okay. I think this belongs to you. The man behind the counter lowered his hand slowly, a cautious relief etching itself onto his face. He took the bag, but did not open it. Thank you, sir. You really didn't have to go out of your way like that. A curious look filled his expression as he pondered Lewis, who had put his hood up so he couldn't be identified. You weren't responsible for that money, you know. Lewis smiled slightly and shrugged. Maybe not, but I think if you can do good, then you should. Wow, rhymed and everything. That's super lame. But the shopkeeper had no reply, and Lewis turned and left the store, heading back to his car. Upon coming up close to it, he saw another figure there. He walked up, realizing that even in the shadows, Lewis could make out stance that Sarah took when troubled. What are you doing here?
You have to drive past my house, and I heard you thinking about coming here and trying this.
Slowly, Sarah approached him and touched his face, looking intently.
Are you hurt?
No, they didn't even lay a hand on me. Lewis watched Sarah's face flood with emotions and could hear her thoughts racing, almost too fast for him to understand.
I can't believe you'd be so stupid. There were guns. I couldn't even hear them all. I don't even know what I'm going to do with you. Why would you do this to me?
Sarah, I'm okay. I promise.
I know you're okay, but it was still reckless. That's not even the real problem. I'm more concerned with what you told the guy. Do you really think you're nothing?
No, I don't know. Stan's gone, maybe for good, and the podcast is about to launch tomorrow. I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know if it's what Jameson said. I don't know, Sarah.
Come on.
Sarah began walking towards her car, parked right beside Lewis.
If you got what you wanted, we should go before the cops get here.
The two friends had kept their thoughts to themselves on the way home, but now Lewis laid in bed, unable to sleep. Why did he feel like nothing? Why did he say that? Why wasn't it something epic to deliver to the criminal? The reckoning would have an awesome line no matter what. It's true what they say, I guess. Hindsight being 20/20. Now I've got a bunch of stuff I would have said. And I can't go back and say it now. But I can give that opportunity to the reckoning. Lewis rolled over and rose out of bed, approaching his computer once more. He opened the newest chronicle and began typing, refreshed with ideas, but still feeling empty. Stan wobbled slightly, using a dusty desk to steady himself. He had endured Whisper's teleportation once before, but he still wasn't used to the feeling. Wooziness was a very prevalent side effect. He glanced at his compatriot, who finally took off his hood. Stan had assumed that Sky Tomber's face would be scarred or disfigured, but it was actually rather plain. The young man's dark hair was slicked back, and his green eyes betrayed the hatred that filled his almost unnaturally thin frame. Sky looked around the room he had warped himself and Stan into.
Whisper, where are we now?
Our workspace. Stan shuddered at the voice. Sky's ghost-like whisper wasn't just for show or for his code name. It was stuck that way. It's like the voice of a chain smoker remixed with the sound of someone using sandpaper, and it hadn't stopped making Stan feel uneasy. Trying to shake off the chills, Stan watched as Sky's body language shifted. He knew this place well, like it was familiar. This large, empty room with only a single desk, a shelf, and some books seemed like...
Like home. We're in Whisper's childhood home. This must be like his old basement or something. Okay, so what are we working on?
First, Sky turned, hood back up. On your reflexes. Stan tensed and watched Sky rush him, taking a kick straight to the chest and getting the wind knocked out of him.
What's the point?
A small twinge of annoyance rose inside as Stan got up. The young genius was not used to being humbled.
We're stronger and faster than everyone. My reflexes are literally at an Olympic level.
You can have the best sword in the world. Sky warped behind his pupil. But if it's dull, it only hurts its user. A simple tap to the side of the head knocked Stan down again, and this continued for several minutes. By the end of the exercise, Stan had been able to block most of the strikes, but could still not counter Whisper's teleportation.
Where did you learn to fight like this?
Surely you found that learning things come more naturally to you after being changed by the Peak Project. Whisper reached into his pocket, pulling out a star-shaped disc and twirling it. I was always the different kid. I loved watching shows where characters could pull off impossible moves. It more or less became my life.
That doesn't make you that different, Whisper. At least not like it would have several years ago.
Sky's lips curled into a strange smile. My enthusiasm was excessive. I made these ninja stars and sword myself, even before the accident at Spire. Its influence became invaluable. After the Peak Project changed me, I found I could do a lot of those techniques. At least the ones that only required physical prowess. I don't know how I acquired teleportation, but... Sky threw the stars at Stan, warped, and caught them again before they reached his student's face. That's enough for today. Let's rest, and we'll move forward tomorrow. After sleeping for around an hour, Stan awoke to his phone vibrating, and he glanced at it, seeing a tweet from David's account.
Oh, snap. They actually released the Reckoning Chronicles. I didn't think they'd follow through. May as well give it a listen.
Sitting against the wall as Sky slept in his father's old chair, Stan began to listen. Finding the story impossible to put down, he managed to listen to the entire arc in one sitting.
Oh, that was pretty good. And the fight scenes were so interesting. It's descriptive. Almost feels helpful.
Stan stood, his body tingling and his mind focused. He could see the battle described, feel them like he had participated.
I wonder.
Stan walked quietly over to Sky and nudged him.
Whisper, whisper.
Sky looked up quizzically.
Let's fight again.
Sky smirked and teleported behind Stan, but this time the student was ready. He ducked underneath the incoming blow and caught Sky's ankle, tripping him. The young wraith eyed Stan scornfully, noticing his stance had changed, as had his demeanor. The teleporter attacked again, only to be countered once more and knocked on his back. Again and again, the pair fought, but Stan emerged the victor every time. What is this? Were you just playing around? Even I don't learn that quickly. You don't fight like me anymore either. What did you do? Stan smiled.
I think I'll keep it to myself. But that doesn't mean you can't learn a few things either.
Stan detected the cockiness in his own voice, but he shrugged it off as he sat back down. He hadn't felt this confident in a minute, and he wasn't about to let it go anytime soon. The tones of David's phone rattled his eardrums and he rolled over, finally awake and glanced at his phone.
What? Bro!
David shouted, rising from his bed and burst into Lewis's room.
Lewis, man, wake up. This is important.
What is it, man?
Check this out.
Lewis took the phone and blinked at the information. Nah, man, this can't be right.
No, it's right. Power of being a minor musical celebrity. Well, that and I managed to figure out how to manipulate the algorithms that promote everything. It took me a couple hours, but in the end, you had about 500,000 people listen to your story yesterday.
Well, I mean, it's our story, but I just can't get over 500. That's crazy. We put an ad in there, right?
Yeah, I haven't even looked at the payout yet, but I think this is the beginning of something awesome.
I can't believe it's all just digital. I mean, that's awesome, man. Let me let Sarah know.
Actually, I'm heading to your place right now. I saw the numbers too.
Perfect. Lewis clapped David on the shoulder and headed down the stairs. Oh man, Mom and Dad are not gonna believe this.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or the series in general, please rate us, follow us, and share it with someone you think will also enjoy it. Until then, we'll see you in 2 weeks for the next chapter.